Hey everyone, this is Dean from Paranormal Pickers. Getting ready for our next Paranormal Picker adventure. Come on, join me. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Paranormal Pickers. First, I'd like to apologize because last week I forgot to bring my power cord for my laptop. So when we were doing a live investigation at the lab, my computer shut down and froze and we lost it all. So I apologize for that. But today I am at home, plugged in, ready to go with my dear friend, Samantha Hochmann.
Hey, Dean. Thank
Listen
you for
to all
having
the
me.
applause. I can hear it already. So, we were talking behind the scenes, waiting for it to go live here and testing out some video equipment or YouTube. It seems to lag us down, so I'm not going to pull that up tonight. Please go to Ghost Head Soup on YouTube. Check out all of the stuff on Tinker. We have some demonstrations there from one of the events that we had back in 2019 is up there. But that creepy face behind the drape is kind of weird to me. I like watching that one. I know it's pareidolia sometimes, but it has that nun feeling in that Conjuring movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes you wonder, is it pareidolia or is it paranormal?
Yeah, they look like they're looking at you. Something, you know, you get the creepies when you look at it. So Samantha, tell everyone what you do.
Sure. So I am the executive director at Tinker Swiss Cottage Museum in Rockford, Illinois. For those who haven't been, it's a Victorian house museum that was owned by Robert Tinker. So, like I said, I'm the executive director. I oversee all the operations, and we have a lot of really amazing events and programming and all sorts of fun stuff throughout the year.
So in Robert, in his lifetime, he basically wrote down everything that he experienced throughout his 88 years on the planet. Say that again?
Just about. So from the time he was 14 until he was 86, he kept a journal most of the years.
Every step, every breath, every whisper. You know, we're going to share some of that tonight with you. I pulled some stuff out that took place in March in a different time period. So it's kind of interesting when you look at the time period and see what were these people doing sometimes, you know. But it's cool because you can actually see him thinking and putting his thoughts on paper. So it's actually quite interesting. And what a treasure this place is in Rockford. And, you know, I swear, people in Rockford don't know it's there sometimes. You know, like a lot of the people in Rockford don't know it's there. They don't know the treasure they have in this city, and they don't even know it's there. So we got to change that.
Absolutely.
And you do have a couple of paranormal events coming up with some big names coming up here.
We do.
You have the Ghost Lab guys, Brad and Barry, coming out. Mm-hmm. And then Christopher Fleming is going to be here.
Yes. So we are so excited to have everybody join us.
Yeah. And he booked 2 nights and they sold out instantly.
Yeah. Within 10 hours each one.
Kudos to you guys. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's unheard. Sold out if you go to the events and you see all these other events taking place, you're the only one sold out. Tinker Swiss.
Well, you know, I'm not going to complain.
No, I wouldn't complain either. Now, has Chris ever been to Tinker Swiss before?
You know, his first time was in mid-February. He came by just to see the place. He said that he'd never even realized it was up in Rockford. And, you know, he doesn't live terribly far away, a little bit closer to the Chicagoland area. And so he thought, well, I'll drive up and see what it's like. He got in and he's like, we've got to do an event here.
Yeah.
So,
Now, I grew up in Roselle, and actually, Dave Schrader grew up in Medina. We actually went to the same school.
oh,
He was
really?
he's 2 years younger than me, 2 grades younger than me. And then Chris lived in Schaumburg, and I lived by Schaumburg Airport, so it wasn't too far from where we were all at. Maybe it's something in the water. We all turned into paranormal geeks.
Maybe. Maybe.
Well, again, welcome and thank you for joining me on the special edition of Paranormal Pickers. This is all focused on the Tinker Swiss Cottage Museum and also the haunts of and the family that lives and resides there still to this day. um, Samantha pointed out, executive director. Now, you didn't start as an executive director. You started as an educational.
Actually, I started off as a part-time museum docent.
Okay.
Yep, about a year into that, the museum educator position opened up. So I was bumped up to the full-time position. And then a year later, my boss, Steve, went, well, my wife's got a job in Tennessee. I'm out. Bye. So they bumped me up again. And here we are 5 years later.
That's crazy. Yeah. But you've been there for 7 years.
I've been there for 7 years, director for 5.
Wow. And the family still loves you.
So far, so good. We've had our ups and downs, but for the most part, they haven't tried to throw me out yet. So,
well, you repaired the roof just recently. How did that turn out?
Actually, today was the official last finishing touches on the roof. So we're thrilled with it. It looks beautiful. Roofing Systems did an incredible job with it. Robert had originally had cedar shingles on the roof, right? Well, they're not making cedar like they used to 150 years ago. So what we ended up doing was having it's like a plastic material. It's modern, but it looks like aged cedar. And from a distance, you really can't tell much of a difference. So
they can tell.
Well, the Tinkers can tell, yes. But we, as the living, can't tell much of a difference. So they just finished putting up all the copper flashings, then the copper gutter today. So everything is all back up and running. And so we actually started the plaster work, repairing the interior ceiling near the skylight where it caved in August. So repair work has started on that.
And looking forward to that. And also, not that long ago, you took down the big oak tree in the front yard, and you turned it into a boardroom table. And you said that. Now, the last time I was there, it wasn't there yet.
Right. It came in September.
It came in September.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. We love it.
I can't wait to see it.
It's nice having our tree back where it belongs.
Now, I know for myself and paranormal research is I feel a tree's energy has a lot to do with the spirit world. So are you sensing something with this table now that it's been, you're smiling, so I'm assuming yes.
Well, so, the tree came down in June of 2019. And it was officially finished and brought back last September. There's a whole big process about drying out the wood and everything. I'll tell you what, in 2019, when it came down, there was just an overwhelming sense of just horrible sadness throughout the whole house. So we could tell they were unhappy. And then when it was delivered, I don't know if it was our own excitement about it or what that drew them, but I mean, you could just tell the excitement was back in the air. It was very happy feeling. It's in our office building, the carriage house. I mean, in the carriage house, in the cottage, a lot of excitement, a lot of footsteps in the carriage house that week when it came through. But
yeah, so this is a picture that I took before, and you can actually see part of it in the back. I mean, this is behind the cottage on the bluff. And if you go online, please do just type in Tinker Swiss Cottage and you'll see some drone footage. You'll see our stuff out there, Sam's stuff out there, everyone's stuff out there. You see a lot of this stuff. Amazing place. I mean, you can see just by this picture alone, it's just beautiful, and that's just the outside of it. But yeah, that tree, I missed the tree, obviously, because I'm a tree guy.
And I do too. I mean, I absolutely love trees. The only tattoo I have is of a tree.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, it was so sad to lose it, but I mean, it had started dead rotting straight through the center, and it was either the tree has to go or it's going to fall on the cottage.
Well, yeah,
So,
that can't happen.
yeah. So
That can't
had to
happen.
make the hard decision to say goodbye to the tree.
Yeah.
But we actually had a gentleman named Stan Tinker. He says he's no relation to our Tinkers,
Oh, interesting.
but he donated a maple blaze
To put in its place?
put in its place. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So it's just a little bit south of it, but it's in the same field. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that the one with the whirly winds, the maples?
No, it turns like a bright red.
Okay. Oh, that might be pretty cool contrast there.
Yeah, so it's beautiful. It's about, I don't know, 20 feet tall now. It's been there a couple of years, so it's growing pretty well. And each
Nice.
fall it turns a nice, pretty red. So in 100 years, it'll be huge and glorious and amazing.
So the oaks by the mounds are going to get jealous of the redhead.
Well, maybe.
I mean, not jealous, but maybe envious.
Man.
So back to the cottage itself. Now, Robert Hall Tinker, he built this between 1865 and 1870.
The first two phases were yes, and then in 1882 they added their third and final phase, which was a glass conservatory to the front of it.
So that was the last that goes up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then now it was donated to the this park district, right?
Yeah, so Jessie, the second wife, ended up deeding the land and the building to the Rockford Park District and the collection to three trustees who set up our own museum. So we're affiliated with the Rockford Park District. They own the land and the exterior of the buildings. We own the interior of the buildings and the collection pieces. They mow the lawn. We take care of the flower beds. It's a really fantastic partnership.
There you go. And this is cool because it's you bring in school groups, paranormal tours, obviously, and you do rent it out. And then we were just talking before, you do Skype and Zoom stuff for like architecture stuff, right?
We do. We have field trips, if you will, for senior groups, for school groups. I mean, we've done our Skype tours all around the world, from Argentina to India, Brazil, Pakistan. We've done a few European countries. So it's been amazing that people from all around the world have been able to see this museum.
See, every time they do something, chops it up. I don't know if you heard it, Choppy.
Oh, well, you
So I'm
froze.
going to bring the slideshow back up there. See, that's what happens. Okay. I just wanted to reach out here. We got Amber too. So you met Amber. She's been out to the Tinker, and you know Laura.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hi, everybody. Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Right. And then we got Ron Lovett. Yeah, I can hear you now. We got Ron Lovett on. And Dorothy Moore, I believe you know.
I do. She's one of our volunteers.
Oh, there you go. Well, hi, Dorothy.
Hey, Dorothy.
I'm sure she's got stories to tell. And Ron says that he grew up in Hoffman Estates, and so there you go. So there's that other paranormal geek squad right there. The Chris Fleming and everyone all in the same area there. So back to the slides. You can still hear me?
Yes.
So I think it's when I remove it, that's when we have that little difficulty. Okay. So let's get back to the dirt. No pun intended, digging. So these are the 3 journals, or AKA diaries, that Robert has penned throughout his 1486-year lifespan, which is amazing. I mean, who does that? And that's awesome. And I know from the first edition, it was more thought out, like he was getting, and then eventually he got lazy and kind of like shorthand everything.
I mean, wouldn't we all by that point?
It's like if you have 3 kids, the first one gets all the attention and the present. Second one doesn't have that many pictures. The third one is just like, don't I have any pictures here? So these diaries were like his children because he didn't have any. You know.
Yeah, they I don't know if you want me to go into the family dynamic just yet, but
We'll get into that. But yeah, no, he didn't have any biological kids that I know of.
No biological children. No.
That we know of.
That we know of.
Right, as they say. So volume 1, his life from 1851 to 1869. Volume 2 is 1870 to 1901. And then volume 3, 1902 to 1922. So he passed, what year did he pass?
He passed on his 88th birthday, December 31st, 1924.
24, so 2 years. So was there a reason why he didn't do the last 2 years?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if it's because he wasn't feeling great or if he was just too busy, because this guy was, insanely busy around town.
There's hidden diaries.
Maybe. I keep looking.
There's hidden diaries.
I want the foot. I want the hidden diary. The secret passageway. And I got nothing.
So yeah, in his diary, September 6th, 1865, he dug the foundation for gates and stones from the creek. So he was actually using the creek for the foundation, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then he also had other passage here back in March 7th, 1865. Lovely day plus evening. Red haunted shanty in evening. Well, this is funny because it's my namesake here. Whaled manure from Thompson's barn into my place. So this guy, what a lovely thing to put in the diary. Whaled manure from Thompson's barn into my place. So there's my namesake's got a little connection there.
Hey.
So I did a little research on the haunted shanty because, what was he reading at the time? So I found that back in 1865, American writers played a key role in establishing the occult detective cross genre, which I'm sure is right up your avenue, right? I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe this is a book if you haven't read it. But Henry William Herberts wrote The Haunted Homestead in 1840. Fitz James O'Brien wrote 2 Harry Escott stories, 1855 to 1859, and those were set in New York. And then the haunted shanty was Bayard Taylor's The Haunted Shanty, and it was set on the Western Front. But of course, back then, the story is from 1861, so the frontier prairies would have been Indiana, Illinois, when they talked about that. So,
yeah.
So instead of Oklahoma and Dakota, so when you read it, you have to think of Illinois and Indiana prairies. Yeah. So something you might want to do that on.
I'm gonna have to look into that. Maybe we'll do a book of the month.
Bayard Taylor, and obviously this time of year, the March 7th, 1870, ice went quickly out of the river. March 7th, 1872, appointment with dentist at 9:30. Snowed hard all day. Reached home at 10:30 p.m. So an hour to the dentist, not bad.
Yeah.
March 7th, 1873, a church powwow at Cottage. Rained. Letter from Marina, which is his sister.
His sister. Mm-hmm.
You know, so he talks about Marina a lot. I've seen.
Yes.
So that's the diaries, and then I do have to bring up. This is not in the diaries, but Sam and the Bat. So yeah, this is. Tell the folks what happened with you and this little creature here.
All right. So here's the thing. My title says executive director. What it should say is person dealing with all the problems. So besides doing the finances and the marketing and helping the curator with exhibits and education programs and hosting fun events, I also have to deal with the rodents. So we occasionally get bats in the museum. You know, it's like any old house. You have to deal with mice. Sometimes we had a squirrel get in once. That was not great. So the bat, you could hear it clawing up the sides of the, because this is like our heating system, right? It got in the vents somehow. And so you could hear it just up the sides, right? And I'm sitting here going, what is happening? And let me tell you, this is located in the boiler room, which is, in my opinion, terrifying. It's where the old coal chute was. It's deeper into the limestone foundation. It's got cobwebs. Not fun, right? So I walk in there, and it's dark in the room. So all you hear is, in the darkness, is flip on the light, and I'm like, what is happening? And so we have a monthly rodent guy that comes around to put out, you know, whatever, to check things. And he's like, it sounds like you got a bat in there. And I said, oh, great. Can you get it out? And he goes, we handle things that we can see. We don't take apart your contraptions to get to the things we can't see. I'm like,
some rodent guy you are.
Right. So I'm standing there, and all I can hear is it scratching. And all of a sudden, I panicked, and I screamed out, Bob, come down here. Why? I don't know. Apparently, I thought summoning the ghost was going to help. And so I'm just like yelling in the boiler room, and I'm the only one on site. And the other staff members haven't shown up yet for the day. And all of a sudden, this gush of wind like sweeps through the boiler room, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at in your house. I didn't mean to yell at you, but like, now that you're here, I'll tell you, my coworkers think I'm absolutely insane. I go, now that you're here though, could you like put your ghost hand through the pipe and like push it out? Which of course did not happen. I had to take the whole system apart. You can see so the one part of that was able to be shut off, right? We could close it. So then when I heard it like hit that part, we quickly like pulled it off and threw the broom on top of it. That's my rodent broom. And carried it out the back door and opened it up and let it go. But oh my gosh, that thing.
And then it got back in. No.
That thing took like 3 or 4 hours to get out of the museum. But what a day that was.
Laura commented, "Oh my God, it never even occurred to me that there might be bats and rodents." Ugh.
Yep.
Don't have no fear. You got Samantha there, man.
Yeah, I got stories for you if you want to go down that road, but probably don't.
Well, speaking of telling stories or things moving, why don't you share the story that you and I had in the red room with your
I fully blame you for this. 110% blame you for this. We had a Victorian childhood exhibit. So we have a case of dolls, and we had transitioned them into the red room, into this display case, along with some other toys and games and things like that, right? So on an investigation, our fearless leader here goes, "Could you make one of the dolls move?" And I looked at you and I said, "Don't you dare ask them to do that." And of course, that night, nothing happened, right? Well, I come back in the next morning, and this one doll, she's kind of cute. She's got a little white dress. She's got brown hair. The thing I don't like about her is she's got teeth. And but so she had slid down the case. And I'm looking at her going, what are the odds? Because every time we send an exhibit, we make sure everything is super sturdy because we don't want somebody bumping into the case and knocking it over or, walking by and it rattles and things fall. We want to make sure our artifacts are properly taken care of and properly set. And so I got gloves. I picked her back up. I reset her. I jumped around the case to make sure she wasn't going to move again, locked up the case again, left the room, came back up later that day, and sure enough, she had slid back down again. So I said, all right, grab more gloves, open the case, fix her, jump around, make sure there's no reason for her to move. She's set. She's there. I lock up the case. I turn my back, and she fell over.
Oh, geez.
All right, that's enough of this. So I ended up having to get this archival pillow to prop under her.
Oh, bye.
Still propped under her because she will keep moving now if it's not properly propped.
And how is this my fault?
Somebody has to move the doll.
Maybe I need to go back and say, okay, stop moving the doll. Maybe there's still...
Maybe, because now that she's set, the one next to her will sometimes hop off its little chair.
Oh my gosh.
So it's she can't move, so she's going to make the other one move. So if you want to come back and ask them to stop, that would be great.
I could definitely try. Well, speaking of some of the characters in the house, I know this ain't all of everyone. I mean, there's...
You got a pretty good core group, though.
Yeah. So when we did a presentation here years ago, I used the game Clue. So I took that from the slides because they turned out pretty nice, I thought.
Yeah.
So we got, we'll just touch base on just not too many. Just, we got Marcia, Robert, Jesse, Josephus, Mary, and then Jack, obviously.
Obviously.
Well, these are some of the residents that still could be there. And, of course, us ghost hunters. This is stuff we use. Now, the glow stick, I had an experience in that same red room with the doll. And I heard a psychic, Paul Smith, say, blue light attracts spirits some way. Or they blind, or your aura is mixed and your blue is more attracted to them and they come to you or something like that. So I got this blue stick, put it on my person, and then I had experiences. I heard a doorknob move. I saw a small girl's face in front of a mannequin appear, and then I had my pocket tugged on. So I don't know if it was leading up to that moment. So that was interesting. IR camera, obviously, S3E5 we use, spirit box, audio recorder, and the Vandograph, which we will show later on in the episode. That little girl, it was quite interesting, to say the least. And then these are the rooms. If you ever tour the place or need to, these are older pictures, so some of this stuff has been updated, and of course you do change out the different displays. So the hall, I think, is important because it's kind of not feng shuied. It's the old house going into the new house, and it's kind of awkward. And I think that could have a chance to have a lot of energy there because of the feng shui. Sewing room, that's where we captured the little girl. And we captured voice capturing that. We didn't capture a little girl, but come on.
There's no Ghostbusters box.
Right. The dining room, amazing place. That's where we captured the girl's face behind the curtain, or similar. It looks like a girl, lady's face. Creeped me out. And then also that video, the same video, there's something that bounces off that guy's head. I still don't know what that is. The kitchen downstairs, the red room, obviously, the parlor. That's where I heard my first disembodied voice there. Master bedroom upstairs for Robert, and then the library, which is uh, one of a kind, and then the study, or Ward A is, or Ward B, or whatever you like to call
Sitting
it,
room.
sitting room. But that's so those are some of the rooms, and I know you had ghost hunters out there, and I'll get to that in a little bit, because there's so much to talk about. That's why we're going to stretch it out to about 5 shows. Actually, we'll have one break because I'll be in Alabama. So for the next 3 Tuesdays, you and I will be entertaining the folks, and then I'll take a break in Alabama, and then we'll restart and do 2 more, hopefully, uh, and maybe more if we need more. You never
Hey,
know.
I'm up for it.
um, so here's something that was in the diary. Oops, hold on. All right, so he wrote in his diary or journal. I don't know why I keep calling them diaries. So March 7th, 1878, Professor Tice's snowstorm is nowhere to be seen. A perfect spring day. Now I love that he calls out Professor Tice, because in March 8th of 1878, Professor Tice predicts this heavy snowstorm, and Roberts called him out as like we do today. The weather's never right. The weatherman's never right.
Yeah.
You were supposed to get like snow, and then it's like sunny. So Professor Tice was like the weatherman of his day.
Meteorologists weren't all that great way back then either, I guess.
But I love that he calls them out. And it's just a little blurb in the newspaper. And during that time, Professor Tice was huge on predicting weather. He was like a student of the phenomena of cyclones, like mixing hurricanes and tornadoes or something like that. And he based now this is cool. He based these predictions on the movements of the planet Mercury and the hypothetical planet Vulcan. Are you familiar with Vulcan?
I've very briefly heard of it, but yeah. I know the Victorians had quite a lot of really interesting astronomy thoughts.
Mm-hmm. So the planet between Mercury and the sun is something with the Mercury's orbit. They were exhibiting something with the orbit, and they couldn't figure out why it was happening. So they assumed that there was a planet between Mercury and the sun that they couldn't see, causing this phenomena to happen. So he was watching this to predict the weather here on Earth. And then, of course, Robert calls him out on it.
Yeah, that sounds
yeah. Some other things here. Sarah Patterson still at our house. This was in 1880, March 7th, 1880. Sarah Patterson still at our house, like he's complaining. Church in mourning, called on Dick A-, who was painfully sick. So we don't really know who Sarah Patterson is. I think she's a good friend of his mom's, perhaps. The next year, in 1881, he was feverish and kept bed all day. A year, 5 years later, in 1886, he heard Reverend Anson Phelps Tinker, wrote home. And then March 7th, 1892, agreed with Arthur Gallatree to work for the summer fall 25 cents per month. Wow. No, $25 per month. We to room and board him. So we know
You
through
imagine.
by that confirmation, we know that Arthur Gallatree was boarded on that property somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's cool. So that's important because if Arthur wants it to come true, so his last name is Gallatree. So speaking of trees, we talked about the oak tree in the front, but
Yes.
this is a tree that's more towards the mounds, and
Mm-hmm.
this was a limb that was probably cut down. I don't know how long ago, but I took a picture of it because, like I said earlier, is I love the spiritness of the trees. And as you can see, there's some kind of shape coming out there. Something pareidolia you see. I don't know. Can you see my cursor? Probably not. But you see like a forehead or something looking out, something. But that's not what I want to focus on. I want you to focus on that little dark area, kind of the left black spot there. You see like a little whiteness in there.
Huh?
Okay, so if everyone's focusing on that part there, I'm going to zoom in on it because it's important because you had ghost hunters there, right?
We
Jason,
did.
Grant, and everybody.
We did.
So this tree, if you look at that little tiny spot next to that picture there, you actually just might see Jason Hawes there.
Well,
So look back at the big picture. You see him off there now. So you gotta see where it's at now.
yeah. Oh, that is interesting.
Laura says she sees it. So that's Jason Haas left his mark, apparently. I don't know how that happened.
Unless maybe his great great grandpa was there at some point.
Oh, that's interesting. You never know.
Never know.
Abraham Lincoln was there.
Not quite.
Oh, it says it.
Well, there's a whole story behind that one.
All right. Well, then we'll say that one for another day.
Sounds
Because
good.
we want to pay tribute to a Miss Mary Thrope, Mary Thrope Wood Tinker, because on May 7th of 1895,
March.
March 7th, sorry. I don't know where I even said May, because Mary probably. So, yeah, March 7th, 1895, his mother died suddenly at noon at the old home.
Mhm.
This is in his journal. Left home for WFD,
Westfield.
4:30 p.m., Chicago, 8:45.
Mm-hmm.
So, so there's Mary. You can see her picture there. So now Mary is an interesting person. She, well, real quick, she was born August 24th, 1809, died March 7th, 1895 at the age of 85. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so she's buried at Westfield Cemetery in New York. She was married to Reuben Tinker, and they had 7 kids. You're going to correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Robert Hall Tinker, Samuel Hubbard Tinker, Charlotte Elizabeth Tinker, Joseph Emerson Tinker, Abby Marina, so that's the Marina. It's funny that they go by their middle names sometimes.
Yeah.
And then Mary Wood Tinker, so they had a Mary daughter, and then Sarah Hills Tinker. So the interesting thing about her is the mom is she lived at the Hawaiian Islands for 10 years with Reuben. She revisited the islands in 1870 at this Jubilee celebration.
Now, real quick, that trip she made in 1870 was when she accompanied Robert and his wife Mary on their honeymoon, along with Mary's sister Hannah.
Interesting.
So Robert had his new wife, her sister, and his mother on his honeymoon.
Brave man.
there.
And I'm sure he was fine doing what he did. There is a book about her, which you can find on missionhouses.org. It's actually, the title's My Missionary Grandmother, an account of experiences and reminiscences of Mary Thrope. Throop. 1809 to 1895. So it was by Elsie Gray Starr.
Yes. So that is Sarah's daughter. Sarah Tinker was married to a Mr. Gray.
So the youngest child. Okay. And Robert does call Elsie out a lot in the journals as well. So cool. That's cool that her granddaughter wrote a book about her, which is amazing. And it's out there somewhere.
Especially, because women weren't well represented in the Victorian era. You don't know about a lot of their lives. And for her to have an entire book about herself, I mean, that's a big deal.
Do you have the book here?
I have a digital copy.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you find a physical one,
free passes for life.
Yes.
So another thing too is, 1831, the expedition, the Reverend Reuben Tinker, American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. They were the fourth company. The fourth ABCFM company arrived June 7, 1831, and the New England from New Bedford. This is all going back and forth, right? This is going from Hawaiian Islands. Reuben, of course, we mentioned him. We got to mention him, I guess. We're not paying tribute to him. But Reuben was a sermon. He's got his own book of sermons by Reverend Reuben Tinker. And I find this interesting too, but there's a biographical sketch of him by M.L.P. Thompson. There's my name again. So
all these connections, Dean.
So I believe that's it right there. So that's Reuben. So that's Robert's dad. That's Robert's Paul. And I think the next slide is Mary. So you see the Hawaiian Children's Society. I did not steal this from Google. I don't own this stuff, but it's in the public domain, so I'm okay.
Yeah, everything before was it 1920?
Yeah, 1920.
Close call.
Yeah, so this is the both of them together. So kind of gives a breakdown of where they were at. So it's nice to see that they're respected and they have both their books. And I think Elsie doing that for her grandmother was amazing. Mm-hmm. So back to the journal. Like I said, the mother passed away on March 7th, 1895. So a screenshot of the diary. Mother died suddenly at noon at home. March 8th, Cleveland breakfast, so he's in Ohio. Found Elsie, who came last evening. Huh?
WFD is Westfield. WFD. Westfield, New York. Yep.
So he arrived at 2 o'clock. He found Elsie, who came last evening. Joseph's wife at 10. Decided to have funeral Sunday p.m. Telegraphed Marina, his sister, who came, however, 5, snowed 3 or 4 inches in the night. Selected casket. It's
short, sweet, to the point.
Yeah, pretty much. Selected casket. All right, so called on Reverend Sweezy. That's like a red fox. I could see like Sanford and Son having a Reverend
Sure, sure.
Tenant Skinner met Sexton at the cemetery, got casket home by noon. Aunt Irene came in time for dinner. Also, Dr. Starr, nurse, and baby expected at evening. Aunt Elida plus cousin Allison. So you could put the whole thing together just based off of what he's saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cold, cold windy, called an old called on old people, aka Dusties.
You know, for him, he would have been, let's see, I mean, he would have been about 60 at this point.
Wow.
So called on old people.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know how many more of his older relatives were still around at that point, but
Isn't it? Yeah. House pretty well filled. And then here's the thing that's interesting too is March 10th, starting to
church.
church with Joseph Lane. Where is it? Oh yeah. So they were putting her in the ground. Reverend Sweeney officiating. Mr. and Mrs. Mason sang 3 verses of 2 hymns. Dark and snowy, no sight of eclipse. Just out of the blue, he puts that in there.
Yeah.
Which now I can go in and say, okay, hey, there was an eclipse back on March 10th of 1895. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so she was interred on a lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
So I tried to go online to see if there was any like hidden voodoo.
Is there?
No, I couldn't find anything regarding being buried on a lunar moon, but I didn't really deep dive into it, so there might be something out there. But I did find something of interest.
Okay.
So there is. So I've been contemplating, like, okay, so where am I going to be buried?
Mhm.
I have no idea. I'm a loner.
Oh.
A loner's got to do what I'm just kidding, but I don't know. I don't feel at home anywhere. It's just like But the moon would be a place that I would feel at home at, and they actually have it. Burial on the moon.
No, they don't. Do they?
Yeah, anyone could get buried on the moon. Anyone could charter an honorary seat on this space flight. You go to celestis.com, moon burials, search that stuff. The lunar memorial space flights are a memorial. The next lunar mission, Tranquility Flight, is already full.
What?
Yeah. However, there are now openings for the Luna 03 flight to launch in the fourth quarter of 2023. So there are openings still.
What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Lunar memorials are open for everyone, not just space geniuses. So you can actually be, I guess, cremated and your ashes are floated to the moon. I think that would be awesome. What's up, Slim? I want to say hi to Jim out there. Hey, Slim, thanks for watching all the time, man. Appreciate you. And
we learned something new tonight.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's cool. Like, you can read these journals and then go deeper into what he says. Just a little, didn't see eclipse. Oh, yeah. Shit, there was an eclipse.
Yeah, who knew?
There it is right there.
Now we know.
Yeah. Lunar eclipse. And then he goes on, and this is where I got to question you.
Okay.
March 11th, blah, blah, blah. Found some of Mother's papers, looked over with Joe, Lefty. They were trying to find the will or something. Took Irene to the train. Found no trace of will anywhere. Gave Mother blank to use. What? If you're dead, how do you what? Here, sign this, Mom. Wait, I'm sorry. Uh, automatic ready. Maybe she was. And then March 14th, left the old home with Mary Gray plus Maggie behind. Killed one cat. Took another in satchel for Buffalo with Elsie. See the cat I put down? Okay. What is
Yeah,
he? Why does he call out that he killed one cat and he took another in a satchel to Buffalo?
you
Explain
know,
that, Samantha.
that is a good question. I know earlier in in the first published journals, when he was like teenager slash early 20s, he had cat skin gloves. So
Hold
I don't.
on.
Mhm. Yeah, you heard
Let
me.
that just soak in here, folks.
Yeah, cat skin gloves.
Okay.
I like to gloss over those quotes and not pay attention to those ones because that I've got 3 cats. I can't imagine just meh. Well, mom has 2 cats. We might as well kill one and throw the other in a bag and we'll just take it with us. I don't know what he would do with it. I don't know why.
Are,
It's just
you didn't name him Glove, did you?
no, I named him Bobby Doug.
Hey, left hand, come here. But that's
Oh
not the only time he talks about killing cats.
no, it's
And having one in a bag is essential going to Buffalo with Elsie.
I don't know. These things just happened.
Yep.
I try not to think about that part. You know, back then, a lot of times cats were used more as just, well, we've got a lot of farms in the area. They're good for one thing, and that's keeping the rodent population down. However, like I said, they also use them to make gloves. And, you know,
There you
it's
go.
it's a part of history I like to jump over.
Well, apparently the cat tried to jump over the moon. Ooh, see what I did there?
Hey, there
Well, that
you
was
go.
how they jumped over the moon. But anyway,
You know, there was something about a cat in there.
so when I have back in 2010, I tried to would have been my first time at the Tinker Swiss. Our group at the time, Illinois Ghost Hunters, we were scheduled to go, and however, I was inadvertently busy. I was in Estes Park, Colorado,
Oh, I love Estes Park.
visiting the Stanley Hotel, doing
Hmm.
a ghost thing out there. And on the first day of spring, it snowed. So guess who got snowed in
Oh no!
at the
Just like
shiny
Stephen King.
at the shiny hotel, the Stanley. So yeah, of all things, I get snowed in there. So we had to stay one extra night. So that was the night. By the time we got home, I would have been able to do Tinker Swiss afterwards. So I did miss out the one time, or the very first time. But obviously, I've been there since then, and I think we actually, well, yeah, March. So March 20th of this month will be an anniversary, 13 years.
Woohoo!
It's
Hey.
lucky 13. My first attempt failed, but many more after did not. So I have to ask:
Hmm.
is the cottage haunted?
It is the official standing of the museum and the staff that yes, we do believe the Tinkers are still hanging around with us. Um, you know, they're not trained dogs or can't blow a whistle and make them do a trick. But more times than not, during our evening events, things happen. Sometimes things happen during the daytime that, you know, you've got a group of school kids coming through and they're like, what is she doing? And you're like, don't mind her, just keep walking. Or somebody will ask, well, who just walked behind you? Don't worry about them. They're doing their thing. We're doing our thing. So you just
And
never
it
know.
doesn't happen all the time. It's
No, it doesn't.
they they could be elsewhere, but sometimes, when they're home
Mm-hmm.
and at rest, sometimes they don't want to be bothered. Sometimes they welcome us in. Sometimes they kid with us. Sometimes they try to talk to us, and it's a hit miss. You just never know
Yeah,
because
nothing's guaranteed,
yeah,
but
one, we can't see them.
mhm.
We might see wisps of them, but I mean, you have every thing that they own still in the house. I would have loved to still have the Manny Mansion.
Would have been nice,
Would
but
you call seriously? I mean, that thing was probably phenomenal looking
oh, I'm sure it was incredible.
back in the day, and that would have been on the other side of the Kent Creek.
Yes.
So,
Would have been nice to have a 2 museum tour, but unfortunately.
yeah, that would have been amazing. And talk about Manny for real quick of what he was.
So, John Manny invented the Manny Reaper. It's one of the things that put Rockford on the map. We were known as the Reaper City for many, many years. It was a new harvester mower for farmers. That's actually where Lincoln comes into play because the John and Mary Manny. So John Manny was Mary's first husband. And they lived
But
down.
not to be confused because we brought up Mary, but that's
Yes.
so
There's a lot of Marys in this.
and
Robert's
then the
first
Mary.
wife, Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her first husband was John Manny, who invented the Manny Reaper. It was in rivalry with McCormick. McCormick took him to court over patent infringement. They hired a team of lawyers, one of which you may have heard of. His name was Abraham Lincoln. So although Lincoln does all this research for the trial, McCormick thinks he has better pull with the judges in Ohio, so he has the case transferred to Ohio, where Lincoln's not licensed to practice. So he brings all of his evidence over and he turns it to the new head of their group, Mr. Stanton, who later becomes one of his cabinet members, right? Well, this is the first time that Stanton has ever met Lincoln. He takes the box, looks him up and down, says, "Who let this lanky ape in the courtroom?" and ignored him the rest of the week. Lincoln did hang out in the back of the courtroom, though, was very impressed with Stanton's control of the evidence and how he, conducted his interrogations. It inspired him to be a better lawyer himself. The Mannies did win their trial, and so yay, they paid Lincoln $1,000 for his work, which nowadays is roughly $32,000.
Wow.
Let him take a year off to study law and improve his own merits. But unfortunately, John did not get to live to really celebrate this win because 2 weeks after the trial ended, he passed away from tuberculosis. Yeah. So that is the only time that Lincoln was ever in Rockford was when he visited John and Mary Manny at their home down South Main Street. Now,
so what became of the building? Did it just fade away? I mean,
so
the train track, right?
Well, which building are you asking about? John and Mary's or the mansion?
The mansion, the Manny.
Okay. So Mary and John had a smaller home. It was more like a cabin type structure. And then after the trial was over, she purchased the Holland House, is what it was called, but it is now known as the Manny Mansion.
Oh, okay.
And so Robert actually tried moving the cabin to the property because he was trying to move. Well, that did not go so well, and it ended up falling apart on the trip down South Main. So good intentions didn't work out great. The mansion itself ended up, they would spend spring and summer over there, fall and winter in their cozy little cottage. It is called a cottage. It's a 22-room mansion. But with the limestone, it kept it cool in the summer. Beautiful landscaped gardens by a world-famous garden landscaper. And then the Tinkers moved fully into the cottage, and they sold a good chunk of that land to the railroad. And they were all about bettering their community, and it brought a huge economic boom to our city. But the problem is the tracks were built so close to the house, and the mansion was already falling into disrepair, right? Well, the vibrations from those tracks just destroyed the limestone foundation, and it ended up coming down in the first decade of the 1900s.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that's good information, and I know we're getting close to the witching hour, the 9 o'clock time, and so we have more shows to go, which is going to be awesome. But before we go, now you being a historian and then also paranormal, when you were a young Samantha, were you already interested in ghosts, or did you have any sensitivity? I mean, how did you start in the paranormal field before Tinker?
Sure. So I am a trained historian. I have a master's degree from NIU. But before that, growing up, we have a family generational sensitivity. My great grandmother used to interpret dreams for people. My grandpa died, had saw the other side, came back. Um, my dad has had prophetic dreams, and then I had a sensitivity as well. And so, but my dad was always, we don't talk about it. We just kind of push it down, right? And going through school, especially through university and all, you want to be taken seriously. You don't want people judging you. And so I very much like shoved it down because I was like, nope, don't want people thinking I'm a nut job. And yet here I am all these years later. But I did grow up in a
You call
house.
it crazy.
I did grow up in a house with a really dark presence in it. And so that also made me not really want to open up more because we had that in our house for so many years. We did have a blessing done on it where holy water was put over the doorways, and that helped a lot. But again, like it just made me not want to. So when I started at Tinker, my dad was really concerned, and he was like, because the only experiences we really had were those dark experiences, right? Growing up in that house. And he's like, you need to be careful. And that's one thing I can say about Tinker is it's not dark. It's not terrifying. It's not anything harmful. This is actually our 80th year as a museum. So it's our museum anniversary this year. And 80. Yep, 1943. So not once has anybody ever been harmed by them. They're a very loving, welcoming family. And being in that environment, I have opened up on my sensitivity. And so I do have a little bit of easier time seeing them, hearing them. But that's kind of where I'm at. So I always kind of had an interest in it, right?
Okay.
Because I had these experiences, but kind of tried to keep it tucked away for as long as I could.
Well, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. So I wanted the folks to know that, yes, we're going to dive into a lot of the Tinker stuff, but we're also going to dive in between the two of us with the paranormal side too, and some of our philosophies and theories behind things. And, so thanks for sharing that with us.
Sure.
And we can close the show, or do you have any?
I don't. I know I see Dorothy's commented happy full moon night.
I know, look at that, huh?
Yeah. So happy full moon, everybody.
Yeah, look at that. And, the 1895 was it? Where, yeah, when there was a lunar eclipse. Where's the lunar eclipse now? So have you been out to New York to see any of his mom's graves?
It is on my list. We did go to New York last year, but we went to New York City, and Westfield is up by Buffalo, so it's like the opposite side of the state. So it is on my bucket list to go see the Tinker family homestead, to see his parents' graves, to go see where he grew up. But
I was close to there. The city that I lived in was Alden, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the people that came from Alden, New York. And so I went I went to Alden, New York, which is not too far from Buffalo. So it's all in that same area. And I did a investigation of the Rolling Hills Asylum.
Okay.
And I believe there was a connection there that we could talk about later.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got a great connection with the asylum
because
we'll wait till next week.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things going on here in the Tinker world, including the 1908 Chicago Cubs.
Yep.
So there's a lot of different articles, and we'll learn more about Robert as we go along. So I like to thank Sam tonight for joining me, and we'll meet up again next Tuesday. Same bat channel, no pun intended.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
It was an awesome night, and everyone tune in next week for the Dean and Sam show. And Robert and Mary, whoever else wants to join in. So see you next Tuesday. Hold on, Sam. Oh, hey. Wow. Oh, hey everyone, it's Dean from Paranormal Pickers. Oh, I got the preview for the next episode. Oh, yeah. Here, take a peek. Oh.
This place is haunted.